Julio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reflect, Recalibrate. We are your lovely lady artivists, host Janet E. Dandridge and Danny Snyder. This is part two of the Environmental Art and Advocacy Collection. We'll be discussing how interdisciplinary. I am so sorry. Let me do this right. We are chatting with Sari Nordman, an interdisciplinary artist working in environmental art and advocacy. Before we get into the convo, here's the quick news bite of the day. All right, so today's quick news bite is from the Pittsburgh Arts Council. As of Friday, August 1st, 2025, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced today that it will shut down its operations following federal funding cuts. This ends a nearly 60-year run of the corporation distributing grants to public media outlets, including PBS and NPR. Despite the extraordinary efforts of millions of Americans who called, wrote, and petitioned Congress to preserve federal funding for CPB, we now face the difficult reality of closing our operations, says CPB President and CEO Patricia Harrison in a statement. CPB remains committed to fulfilling its fiduciary responsibilities and supporting our partners through this transition with transparency and care. And as we reported earlier this week, we being the Pittsburgh Arts Council, the federal cuts continue to be felt in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, most recently at the city's local PBS station, WQED, which announced the layoff of 19 employees due to budget concerns. Just one more, one more thing. Special shout out to Axios Pittsburgh, which also shared updates this week on a new survey led by Pennsylvania Humanities in partnership with the Greater Pittsburgh Arts Council and the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance that shows nearly 95% of Pittsburgh's arts and cultural institutions, 95% of Pittsburgh's arts and cultural institutions expect to be affected by federal funding cuts. Yes.
That's probably like
Right.
across the board, not just there, you know?
I'm still stuck on the fact that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, 60 plus years
Yeah.
of funding for PBS, NPR, is closing its doors. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know really. Because the first thing that comes to mind is Sesame Street.
Yeah,
And
I know.
how I was able to watch Sesame Street because it's on PBS.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think my family had cable at that time. I don't even think was cable going on.
That's
I
a
don't
good
even
point.
think
That's a
cable was
really good
going
point.
on, right? Like, so I don't even know if cable was going on at that point, actually.
Yeah.
But regardless, it was available to people who were able to have TVs in their homes or go into libraries and be able to experience Sesame Street, fundamental to learning for children, one of the resources in which children can use to learn, right? And they're closing their doors?
Yeah. Yeah, before we even got on here and Jan and I got together, we both were like, "How are you?" And there was a lot of overwhelmed. We're feeling really overwhelmed, and I would say probably Janet more than me at the moment, but it's yeah, the news every day. I turn the news on, I'm like, what's it gonna be? And not just closing doors to like, PBS, NPR, but what about like, Department of Education? So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And
It's
wow.
yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't know what to say either. I really don't know what to say. And I don't know what to do anymore sometimes. I don't
It feels defeating.
Yeah.
It feels as though anything and everything you do does not matter.
Yeah.
However, it does matter.
Yeah.
We understand that movements have happened throughout our history and they have changed what was unjust.
Yeah. I was just going to
And
say, this actually is a really good transition into what we're talking about today, because when it comes to climate change, the despair is real. And we're going to be talking about eco anxiety of this, like, there's so much. I don't even know where to start, what to
exactly,
do. Does me
exactly.
recycling my one water bottle really make a difference? But it's like what you said. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Sari Nordman, welcome to RFC. Woo woo!
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Danny, for having me.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the important work you do. Um, what I was just thinking when you were talking about this closings, and what I have been thinking about a lot, like sometimes I feel like I lose my hope um, in the future advances and justice. And but I also recognize, because I have worked with many people doing ecological work, environmental work. I have talked to many people from around the world, and noticing that there are much worse conditions. And sometimes what I still have is that I have the privilege of hope. And that's why I feel like I need to engage that hope. It's like a muscle, it's a discipline that I have to continue working with, because there are people around the world whose sole purpose is survival. So they don't have the privilege of hope, I I think. And so I think I thank you for doing this podcast, and because that's very important work. So this is my first response, what you was saying. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
little things matter.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. That's a great takeaway already. Privilege of hope. I didn't really think about it in that way, but that's so accurate. So accurate. And I do want us to instill hope. That's a great, I think it's a great objective for our podcast. There are times where we come on and we're like, oof,
Mm.
okay, hope is kind of hard right now, but ultimately, I mean, that's a big thing we'll talk about too in our episodes is burnout. But let's not start quite with burnout. In fact, actually, Janet, do you want to jump right into our question for our audience and for Sadi, our opening question?
Yes, I do. So, the opening question for everyone, and I'll put this in the chat. What do you do as a steward of our planet? If you're an artist, how do you consider the environment when creating your work? And I'll put that in the chat. That is the question. Those are the
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah. So, do we want to jump into Sadi when we give a minute for people to respond?
Sadi, I mean, let's
Yeah.
let's 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 jump in.
Sadi, what do you do for the planet?
What do I do for the planet? I cherish the planet. I love the planet. I love nature. And I want to protect so many things about the planet and nature. And I feel like um my 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 ways, my medium is art and art making. I'm passionate about making environmental work, and then also through education. I work as a teaching artist in New York City public schools. And also more recently I have been working in a correctional facility. So um, educating people about the health benefits that come from art, but also how we are connected with our environment. So, and I use materials in my work that are derived from fossil fuels. I use plastic. That's been my material and subject in my work since 2019.
That's so all that is cool, but I didn't know that you worked in a correctional facility, and that's something that's very much of interest to me. So that's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, that is more recent. when I transitioned. I used to live in New York City. I lived there like more than 20 years, and I've lived in a year and a half in Westchester County in New York, just north of New York City. And then um, I got new opportunities to teach, and I enjoyed this work a lot. So it's like residency based, like I do short residencies.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've loved that work a lot.
It's so important. Yeah.
I'm curious about how you bring in the environmental art and advocacy into that space.
Into that environment, right? Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I was teaching dance, and I have done lots of somatic training myself, and I recognized the important connection with body-mind connections, and I think there is this health benefit for us for moving. I mean, it's all statistically proven, and like thinking about dementia and all that, like how just like exercising is a very important part of our health. I'm not a scientist in this matter, so I'm talking about from a dancer perspective or a teacher perspective. And well, dancing, I think in general, it makes people smile. And I think that already is that when we have a more positive outlook, it helps ourselves, but then our connections to other human beings and connecting with other human beings, and learning about different people, and being open to connecting with people. And then I think those conversations, like for us to be able to have conversations with each other, we need to be open, but then that's when we can understand the different circumstances, and I think then we are more capable of helping each other as well, and understanding different problems that we have.
I think that's a great takeaway too. It's like we need more dance in everything, like protest marches. Why aren't we dancing down the street more often? Yeah.
What I really like, when I early on when I came to New York City, there was actually public dance restrictions, like you were not allowed to dance. That was like an old law.
What?
And yeah, you were not allowed to, like you need to have a permit to actually dance. And now that restrictions was withdrawn. So because I remember like when I was younger and I would go to bars and we were just dancing. We just started dancing, and it was so exciting. Like people were just dancing and having fun. And then next week I went to the same bar and they were like, "No, you're not allowed to dance. You cannot dance. Like it's not allowed."
In New York City?
In New York City. Yeah, this was in the 90s. Yeah,
what?
so it was yeah, I remember that, and I was just so heartbroken about that. And
Wow.
and I'm so happy that that rule has been removed, because I think connecting with our bodies is very important. I have traveled to Greece a lot, and I think ancient Greeks, they had this connection with the human body, and it's like the soul was everywhere in the body. It was not just in the head, which is sort of like this Judeo-Christian thinking that the mind is beautiful, but it's like the ancient Greeks, they thought about the whole body is beautiful and the whole body is soulful. It's like the intelligence is everywhere in your body. So that's kind of like, in some ways, I'm trying to teach that dancing is fun and connecting with our bodies is beautiful. And so, and I think when we are happier, then it's more fun to connect with other people.
Yeah.
Easier. Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
easier.
gosh.
Easy. It can definitely be easier. Sometimes
Yeah.
anger is an easy way too for people to connect, actually. But I feel like through happiness is better.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to environmental art, right, and advocacy, because our bodies connect, right? We are connected to the earth, right? we are connected to all of that surrounds us. So using our bodies, we were talking about somatic movements and understanding how we play a role in the environment is extremely important. So how do you, in the ways in which you do it in teaching, right, within your work, how do you connect or explain how the body plays a role in environmental art and environmental art and the advocacy of it, or in
Uh,
advocacy of environmental justice? My apologies.
well, I have, as an artist, I have transitioned from performing arts to more visual arts. And but I think a movement plays an important role in the work I do, in that I consider a movement and the sensorial quality of my work. And then I invite people to participate in my work. And I think that's also kind of like choreography in a way, like it's dance choreography, like inviting people to participate in my work. Like I've done a video project. It's called Tower. Um, Maybe we can also share some of the pictures that um, uh, where I invited people from around with climate change. And this started, this also started when I was traveling in Greece. And I was going through this transition. I had a really hard period because I knew my dance career was coming to an end. So then a friend of mine invited me to go to Greece, and I that was like a new spark. And I went to several archaeological sites, and this became kind of like my hobby. And just absorbing all that history, thousands of years, and then seeing all these monuments and temples and walls and that had once belonged to these magnificent peoples, I started thinking about the nature that was like eroding these marble slabs, enormous slabs, and climbing the walls, and and I found this new vitality in this observing nature. And then I started thinking about the remains and thinking about the ancient remains and the contemporary remains. And I was living in New York City, and I wanted to build. And I when one after one of those trips, I came back to when I came back to New York City, I had this like it was almost like this vision of a fallen tower. Like I wanted to build a fallen tower, and I wanted to especially think about the plastic waste. Um, and I wanted it to frame plastic waste, because there's a lot of plastic that's just sort of flying around, kind of like almost like it's another organism in New York City. Like there are pigeons and other animals in New York City, birds, but then there's also these plastic bags that kind of fly when you are walking on the street, and they like fly around, or plastic cups, they kind of like walk with you as you are walking on New York City. So I wanted to frame that movement, and I created this tower. I realized in the process that before I could build the fallen tower, I had to build a tower. So I was in this residency catwalk at Catwalk Institute in Catskill, New York, and in this picture I have built the first prototype of tower out of wire mesh, and you see these shiny screens. Those are recycled plastic bags. And when I saw this prototype, I realized that it was like a Tower of Babel. Uh, it it had, and I realized that this is the tower is not just to frame plastic waste. It has to also have some other environmental connection. Um, and I realized it had to be multilingual, and I started interviewing people from around the world sharing their personal experiences with climate change. At the time, it was during the first Trump administration. There was a lot of anti-science, which is happening again, even worse. but having traveled in different parts of the country, even states where that were more likely to vote against climate change protections, having those conversations with people, I realized that people were anticipating changes. People had noticed changes. The winters were shorter. There was less snow. The summers were hotter and drier. And I was like, well, if we can't believe in science, then maybe if I can have people share noticing of different impacts, and so that's why I started doing those recordings of uh, of personal experiences with climate change. And uh, originally I started with friends just to feel comfortable with the interviews, and then I expanded it, and I realized that there was such interest. People wanted to share their experiences. Like I felt like people wanted to do something, and I felt like I had this opportunity to amplify their voices through this work. So that's kind of like the other way of how I've directed movement or choreographed movement. And obviously, because these were these were public art installations, the plastic screens, obviously they move a lot in the wind, and so you hear the plastic, you don't only hear the people. And like in this particular picture of a tower, there's a interviewee from Uganda and Guyana, Mexico, and Venezuela. And this was at the King Manor Museum in Jamaica, Queens, New York. And sometimes it was a cacophony of voices, kind of like create the impact, like just that it's a global phenomenon. Like there's globally we are feeling these climate change impacts. And sometimes I would highlight individual voices to share like some certain important message. And these were multilingual interviews. People were talking. First, I would discuss with people in English or sometimes in Finnish, depending on which country I was in. And then the actual recording would be in their native language. And then I translated the interviews, and I created this archive page on my website.
So just to be clear, so for those people who are listening, like we have the sounds of the interviews when we're there at the tower, but also the faces of the interviewees projected on those screens those screens are moving with the wind. And then I'm wondering how close did you have to get to the tower to really start hearing those interviews? And were you always present whenever the tower was up? So that you were able to be like, here's the website, here's where you go to learn more.
So there were QR codes for people to, yeah, but I was present because it was a whole setup. Like we had to bring the projectors and the speakers. The speakers, like people could hear it from further away, because sometimes I could see like people kind of like they heard it from a distance and then they ran towards the tower and they were listening from a distance, like they didn't come right next to the tower. But yeah, you could come close and then you had a chance to like walk around and almost like, because it was like, so these projections, they were video, so you could actually see people talking, but then the speakers were sort of outside of the tower, kind of like in the periphery. And it was it was sort of like an apartment. I thought about the tower like an apartment building, sort of like a global apartment building. And there are these talking heads sharing um, their experiences. And I really love the work. I have to say, I've actually recently, I've kind of opened, I have all along, I have like, if somebody has wanted to share their story for Tower, I have included that. But now I'm opening it up again. I want to kind of similarly, I want to do some sort of a podcast where I put videos online too, so that I can share voices from around the world. Again, sharing their personal experiences with climate change, because more voices need to be heard. Because if you can't believe in science, then there's still so many people have truth to share and experiences to share. Yeah.
I want to point out the materials that you shared, that you used within this work tower. You said wire mesh, I think, and recycled plastic bags. And then you have the projection, correct? And then you have an audio device. And we had a response in the chat about the types of materials that one artist has converted to, in terms of how we as artists are stewards of the environment. And this audience member shared, I have converted all of my materials to non-toxic versions. Synthesized cadmiums, lavender oil medium replaces turpentines, non-toxic since the Renaissance, for example. Reuse, repurpose, and recycle. So with that, I am curious, thinking about the QR codes and thinking about digital sensors that, transmit all of this information and store all of this information. How do you reconcile the use of technology in that way when working as an environmental artist? And the second part of that question is, how do you define environmental art then?
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for the comments. Well, the way I think about it, that just my pure existence on this planet is I'm contributing to the carbon footprint. Just because I'm breathing, I'm contributing to the carbon footprint. And yes, I can do some things to reduce, recycle, and repurpose. I can also educate people about reducing, recycling, and repurposing. But I think to make major changes, it needs to be more governmental. There needs to be more federal protections, more global agreements of protections, because just for me, not use steel, not use wire mesh, not use the digital medium. I mean, that is contributing, but that is such a small particle in when I can try to advocate about the importance of making federal protections and some major changes, like for instance, reducing fossil fuels, or making doing something about the recycling, where we are actually recycling, because now most of the things, recyclables, they are sent to South America, or they were sent to in Asian countries, and where they just pollute the rivers. And so this country needs to make such permanent changes that will help reduce, and then so that the carbon footprint will be minimized. And I think artists can be helpful stewards in trying to advocate these things, because we can help people participate in our process. And like, I myself, like, having seen some artworks, those have changed my worldview, where there were questions or issues that I did not even understand what they meant because I was coming from a different country, or so they were sort of, I didn't understand their background or history. But then when I saw an artwork, uh, that's something that blew my mind and made me understand. So yes, I am also trying to reduce, recycle, and repurpose things. And I continue using plastic as a material. Partially, I am concerned about using plastic because then I also recognize that all that nanoplastic and microplastic can contribute to my health, which, and then if I get really sick, then I will be needing medical services. And well, then that can also cause a major, higher carbon footprint because now I will be needing the medical services. So it's like, I am a breathing human being. So I will have a carbon footprint no matter what. I recognize that, but I can try to reduce, recycle, repurpose, and I can also try to help advocate people about doing these things. And I think, and I'm seeing more of that, reducing, recycling, and repurposing in more artworks, and I am thrilled about that, that more and more people are doing that. Because yeah, there are many harmful chemicals that I used, and steel obviously is a very harmful material because of carbon. But I have to say, like, being a female artist and an immigrant artist in the US, when I learned welding and using power tools, I have to say, I felt this immense agency. Like I felt some sort of
Yes,
powerfulness using those tools. And I think that that can also be helpful in some ways. If I am not like, and I have that this tower sculpture, the wire frame that you saw in the picture. It's I welded that at Troy Makerspace, Tech Valley. And I still have that tower, and I actually recycled it in another artwork. I did Anxiety Tower. Maybe you can share a picture.
I
of,
will.
And Anxiety Tower had a Anxiety Project is another project that I'm doing that has these different projects underneath, and Anxiety Tower was one of the projects that I did. Anxiety Project is refers to eco anxiety, this environmental anxiety, and in the process, I not plastic waste, recycle plastic film, like any packaging materials, plastic bags I use for making these tapestries. And some of these tapestries have been made through social engagement. And so I had an opportunity to share Anxiety Tower at South Street Seaport as a public art exhibition in last September, um, 2024 in New York City. And so in this project, there's also concrete. And so then I recycled the tower sculpture for this
Yes, I
particular.
see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see it. I see the tower is holding I was calling these boas because
Yeah.
we have other images where people are wearing these plastic creations from Saudi. And so I was calling them boas. Is there a particular name for the plastic objects around
Well,
the
I kind
tower?
of call them tapestries. I don't think it's a
Tapestries.
perfect name because they are
Mhm,
more sculptural, because tapestries are still mostly like two-dimensional.
mhm, mhm.
But I still call them tapestries because I have not been figure out
I think that's a great way to
Yeah.
reflect on them, and it's your work. So
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
call it
Yeah.
what you want. You know what I'm saying?
I could see the boa though, because it is colorful. It's fun. It's just fun to look at. It's colorful and rainbow and yeah.
I mean,
So,
all the like the pieces that I make, I call them anxiety 4, anxiety 5, anxiety 6. Then some of them I have like anxiety tower, anxiety river, anxiety. I mean, you are getting the trend. It's like anxiety.
Yeah.
yes. So
Anxiety flag.
which anxiety are we at today? What?
Yeah.
Which one are we at
No,
today?
that's a good question. I like that question. Now I'm going to the anxiety wearables, and
Mm,
I recently made this. I still have not quite decided the name, but I think it's called anxiety dress, and it's kind of like a poncho. I think I did not include the picture, but oh, I did include a picture. Anxiety
let's see.
dress,
And
and it's like a because um so I was invited to I was invited to make one dance performance, and and that was like a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I hadn't been dancing for a long time, so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be dancing, what I'm gonna do. And because I had already been doing so much visual arts, so I felt like I had to sort of come from a new perspective, like the visual element. And so I decided to wear those tapestries that I had been making, those boas, the long
mhm.
boas as a as my as my my costume. And so then I had an opportunity to work at New York City Summer Streets and share my work and process. And then I invited people to where my boas, and I took photographs of them. So I made these portraits of them wearing my tapestries. And so then I also think I should make more like a costume. So then this anxiety dress, which you see on the um, right side of the picture, is this um, colorful tapestry um, that you can wear over your head. So it's like it lands on your body kind of. And and
Well, real quick, Sadi, just got a comment in the chat for you. Uh, I want an anxiety dress in real time. You should reproduce it for everyday wear. Yes,
uh,
yes.
ex yeah. Yeah, anxiety dress. Yes. And next thing, what I'm actually gonna make is an anxiety hat, because I have this residency coming in the fall, and I propose to make an anxiety hat. So that's what I will be
Well,
making.
I
An anxiety.
also I'm thank you for sharing this because
Mhm.
like I could wear that today right now. Like I
Yeah.
need to express myself, but I want to also share some more stuff from the chat that we received because this is in relation to something you said, Sardi, earlier, and it connects to the second question about how you define environmental art, which we want to get to. One of our viewers is saying, what do we do when the federal governments are at the corporation's behest? Can federal governments be trusted to prioritize planetary wellness? But ultimately, this begs the question of why the humans of Earth have to scramble and fix their habits when the governments, corporations, manufacturers are the primary sources of the environmental harms. And they barely budge, but they tell us what we need to do to reduce our footprints. So I just wanted to give that response in relation to what you said regarding government protections, which is important. But will they do what we need them to do in the United States? Because you specifically were talking about the United States of America, right? Especially with the federal government that we have right now. So I think that leads into that question. How do you define environmental art when we may not have those government protections that we all know we need and that we've been working really hard for? How do you define environmental art within this environment
Mm.
of injustice?
Um, well, for me, environmental art, it's I mean, it's my self definition, my personal definition is connecting with nature and connecting with protecting the environment, and also raising awareness of the importance of a natural environment to our mental health, our physical health, um, our um, maybe apathy in the world, our alienation, um, these feelings of alienation. Um, I come from Finland. It's a fairly big country, but we are only about 6 million people. So there's a lot of open space, open land, and nature. And so that's what I grew up with. And for us in Finland, nature is like, it's our church, it's our temple, it's our spiritual place. And for me, it's the ultimate spiritual place when I go in nature. And that's where I feel this immense connection um, to the universe. Um, I just, because I was editing an interview, I recently recorded somebody talking about their personal experiences with climate change from South Africa, and he was saying how nature provides us everything. Nature provides us food, the materials that we can build our houses. Nature is math. Nature is science. It helps us out, solve problems and understand logic and understand. It can give us meaning and obviously health. Uh, so for me, when I say that I make environmental art, I use different mediums. Like I mostly work in the visual arts, I would say, but I use different mediums, and I'm an interdisciplinary. I use different mediums to make work that is environmental. It's about the, maybe some people would say ecological art or eco art. Um,
Yeah, that was something we started talking about in our last episode, actually, is trying to understand trying to determine the contemporary definition of environmental art based on whether it's ecological or if it's more advocacy. And I I like your definition because that's my definition. Like when I went into this whole thing, I was like, oh, environmental art is about, connecting with nature, like you said, and also how am I protecting nature, right? But yeah, as I was looking more into it, I was like, oh, that's not always been the case. And then I kind of forgot about my days back in during my theater degree where environmental theater was just when you did art and performance in a not traditional theater space, where you did it in a hallway of a building, when you did it in a coffee shop. So I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about all of that. And it kind of inspired me to get back into that, actually, because that might be the best way to approach climate change, as far as like how to use artivism towards climate change. But yeah, there's so much I can think too along the spiritual lines. I am 100% there with you. I'm not a very spiritual person, but the times where I have felt spiritual and I felt meaningful was in nature, for sure. And it's funny because you said that you're like, it makes us feel meaningful. And I'm like, I don't know how. How does that communication with the trees work? I don't do mushrooms, but I did think about that too. It's funny actually. I have a friend right now who's in the Black Forest in Germany, and I was one of my favorite places to go when I lived in Germany. And I remember taking time to pick mushrooms, and I was still learning about what the different mushrooms were and things. That was one of the best experiences ever. And yeah, it was very spiritual. And you have these trees that are so tall. These trees are so tall and they look almost man-made because they're planted so perfectly. And it's like, no, this is all completely natural. This is all, so anyhow, I could go way into all of that too. But yeah, I'm thinking too about the interdisciplinary part of it. But before I get into that, Janet, did you have any follow-up question on the ecological part of this? Because I know that's something you were very interested in.
I was curious about how you, Saudi, defined it because of how it was defined in the 1960s and 70s and how it shifted into environmental art. And I am a performer. I perform in the environment, in the world,
Hmm.
in different spaces. I live in a forest. And what's interesting to hear from both of you, for me, is this understanding the connection that we have to nature. We are nature, and we should feel this sense of calm, I think, in so many ways when we are
Hmm.
deep, let's say, in the forest. Yet for me right now, because of everything going on in the world, I'm feeling all of this keyword anxiety. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I feel as though because I'm also a city girl and I'm like, ooh, there's bears out here and loose. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I go into the environment, if I go into the forest and I just sit, what's going to happen? And, but I also do feel this wonder and the cosmic connection, especially in the forest when you don't have that light pollution, or where you don't have that light pollution, and you can see all of the stars.
Hmm.
In the evening, you can see all of the stars, and that just takes you into another place. It would be great to have more time to sit and enjoy the fact that I live in a forest,
Hmm.
but I am doing all of this work with organizing and advocacy and survival, etc. But I have to make that time. So sorry, thank you just for reminding me of, I am spiritual and connecting in that way and
Hmm.
giving that time as best as I can, making sure that fear factor is gone about the bears. So that's,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. But I am curious also about the interdisciplinary work as well as this community
Yeah.
activation. So please, Danny, thank you for giving me this space for that moment.
Yeah, that's so funny too. We just got back from a vacation in Alaska, which was amazing. I saw whales, I saw otters, I saw moose. I did not see a bear, and I was trying to see a bear. My boyfriend the whole time was like, "No, we do not want to see a bear, Danny." But I do. But yeah, so let's talk about interdisciplinary work because I'm wondering Sadi, I think you and I are very similar in that we like to do performance, but we like to do visual art. We like to make the things that we wear. We like to do a lot of different things artistically. So I can make a lot of arguments as to why interdisciplinary work is so important because it just gives me an excuse to be able to combine all the things that I enjoy doing. But I am curious for you, why do you think interdisciplinary work is so important within the realm of environmental art and advocacy? Why does it have to be interdisciplinary? Why can't it just be a painting or a dance performance?
Um, well, maybe I can say I don't have a formal training in painting.
Well, that
And
was
I
just an
think,
example. Yeah.
yeah, so, um, but I think my goal as an artist is to make art that connects to nature, connects to, um, so all of the work that I do right now is somehow influenced by climate change impacts. And this is what I want to communicate to the world. So it's environmental. So I use different mediums because I have always had different mediums, like different interests. Like when I was making my own choreography, I sometimes make costumes. I made digital, like I made designed like the invitation postcards. I've always taken photographs. I I designed the lighting for the performances. Like I always did, like I was interested in different things. And when I was getting my master's, like I have master's in dance. I took a photo class. I studied voice, so I was doing singing, and then I did a sculpture class. Um, and I did art history classes. So I've always had these different interests, and I being interdisciplinary, it's just for me, it means that I'm using different mediums to try to communicate the environmental art. Like that's that's how I think about it. Like I'm an environmental artist, but I'm also an interdisciplinary artist because I use different mediums to make work that is environmental. Um, and
But would you encourage other artists within environmental art and advocacy to do more interdisciplinary work? Like, do you feel like that's key to achieving objectives within advocacy?
I think, I mean, I don't think I can say that because I think it's important to find our own passions. Like if someone is passionate about painting, um, I can't say like, no, you should also try something different. Um, um, yeah, like if I had the amazing skill of painting beautiful birds or beautiful paintings of animals or nature, like I have seen many artists do that, or like I have some favorites, and like that's an amazing skill, amazing talent they have, but I don't have that talent. So I I started making these most recently, the work that I'm doing is making these tapestries out of recycled plastic. And that was actually in my family, there are lots of handcrafts makers, and uh and I grew up in the 80s, and 80s was kind of the time when it's like we kind of looked down upon all those handcraft skills. It's like now it was easier to buy things in a store, and like it was easier to get things and then just discard them and get new things and replace the old. Like it was not like you were starting from a seed, growing the wheat and then turning it into a tablecloth or something to wear. So during the pandemic, I spent a little more time in Finland, and I was sort of like reconnecting with my family and handcrafts, and then I was inspired to start making these tapestries that I inspired by Finnish, they call ria rug, or kind of like a shag rug. And I developed my own because the plastic doesn't weave the same way. So I developed my own technique. I call it knotting. And so I developed my own method so that these tapestries, they look a little bit like these Ria rugs. And so when I was doing, and it's extremely tedious process, like super tedious. Uh, and when I was making it, I realized that, wow, this is kind of like giving me this calm, and it's meditative, and I realized that this was my anxiety project. And I was like, hey, that's also a cool title. That's what I should call this. Like I have all these ecological anxieties, and um but then there's this other side. It's like it gave me this sense of agency, like in my person, I have some abilities to do something. And I've been so excited because I have had many opportunities. Like there have been probably hundreds of people who have participated in my project and helped me make these tapestries. And then I've shared the work in public art installations. One of the most recent one was Anxiety Flag that was in Wood Hill Park in New York City. Have a picture of that if there's still time to share it. And and so now I'm just excited to continuing this project. And maybe this is less interdisciplinary because it's like I'm doing tapestries, but then I also combined it with the with the steel sculpture and and now I'm thinking about, because so many people are like, whoa, that looks like fur from a distance, like that could be at the Met Gala. And so then I was like, I need to make some wearables.
So it was
Anxiety
called
flag. Anxiety.
anxiety flag. I was just about to say, what was it called again? Anxiety flag. So anxiety something.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
which is funny too, because again, sometimes the works are they are just in my mind like, oh wow, they're just really cool looking and vibrant, but they don't necessarily instill in me a sense of anxiety right away. But then once I start to process the piece, and I'm like, oh, I see now what this is showing. And yeah, anxiety can also be very overly saturated, right? And a lot going on, a lot of textures, a lot of layers.
Yeah,
And
and I think what it's also doing is that a material that is so abundant and
mm,
so destructive in our on our planet, but and we just like kind of like discard it and toss it away, but then sort of highlighting it,
mhm.
it's like we recognize the material in a new way. And then also thinking that so many hands have participated in making this
Yeah.
flag. um um
Which kind of leads me to another question about community and how you're using art for community activation. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Um, well, like when I was doing the interviews, um, and also like doing the nodding, and every time when somebody participates with me, it's like we are exchanging something, and it's like a gift. And when somebody shares their story, there's something very intimate, and I feel like I'm holding this very precious gift. They have shared their voice, their anxiety, their concern for the planet. And I am, as an artist, I'm somehow like, I cherish this gift that people share, that they are nodding, and then they also help other people, like, this is how you do it. They help other people learn the process. It's like, and then we talk together when we are making this tapestry,
Mhm.
and I feel like it's a gift, and I just want to like hold it very carefully, and trying to present it to the public that this is what we made, this is what we are feeling. We are concerned for the environment, we are concerned for the climate change impact, and we want more protections
Mhm.
for our nature, because nature, we are nature ourselves. and if nature dies, we are going to die. We are there are no human beings if we don't have nature. And I've felt so, it's been just like immense blessing, or like I felt so grateful for having all these people join me in making tapestries or sharing me their stories. Some of those stories were so violent, and having those stories, I just want to like share them somehow with the world, to
Mhm.
to recognize that this is a global issue
Yeah.
and we are interconnected.
Yeah. It's interesting because we opened the conversation with talking about how dance is a great, joyful way to connect, an easy way to connect. But then I was like, well, anger is an easy way to connect for people to connect too. Then I was like, well, fear actually and survival is a way people come together for sure. But I like that, people are coming together to express their anxiety, but then there's also this meditative task, and there's also this very positive way of releasing that, venting even maybe,
Mm-hmm.
it's a form of therapy for sure. So I like that you're finding art as this positive outlet for that and it's shared experience, creating relationship, inspiring and fostering relationships in the process. And now when they walk by that flag, they can tell other people, hey, I helped make that. And this is why, that's great. That's what I was just thinking recently with the mural that I did. Like that's the best part is when someone walks by and they're like, I did that one little flower on that mural and this is why we did it. So um gosh, it is already 2:02. Janet, it's already been a whole
I was,
hour.
yeah, and I was just saying maybe we can give ourselves just a few more minutes because I
Yeah.
know that that last question
Yeah.
is
Sorry.
important
Yeah, can I ask you one more question? I was
before
just
the last question.
before the very, very last question. We always have a special outro question. But yeah, I one of the questions we also had in mind was how can artists be more environmentally conscious in the creation and distribution and implementation of their works? So, kind of like we were asking before, how do you feel about using like projections and audio and things like that? But just, more generally, artists who are actually, it probably doesn't even have to be, I'm not even thinking just artists that are within the realm of environmental justice. I'm thinking like all artists.
Yeah.
Are there other ways besides like choosing paints and things like that? Are there other ways that maybe we haven't talked about where they can be more environmentally conscious?
Yeah. Your sage advice.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say that I'm an expert in this, but like there are organizations like um gosh, I should probably provide a list afterwards. Like I know that there are some organizations that actually contribute to that list, like sort of like the alternatives. And recently I discovered there's even like um what is this like sparkly stuff that you can put on your skin? Like you can actually get like a
Oh,
bio
glitter?
glitter. You
Yeah.
can get bio alternative that
Yeah.
is not, because the glitter is actually really bad because it's
Really bad.
basically nanoplastic itself. So this bio glitter, I discovered that you can, and I want to use that in some of my projects.
Hmm.
Um, and uh and I know that there are also some paints for certain tasks that are environmentally less harmful that people, and I would encourage, and I think this is the most important, then I would encourage everyone to do their own research. Like when they're using some materials, it's like ask yourself, it's like, is there a product that could be less harmful? And then do some research in terms of that. And then like for myself, like I'm I mean there I'm trying to like recycle the packaging material so that then I can reuse them, like if I have to ship something or deliver something, that then I have packaging materials at home. That's one thing. And I'm trying to repurpose as many things as possible. And I know many people are already doing this, um and it would be great. Share with me. I would love to hear more about
I
different things.
actually have one that I can add to your list because what you're sharing is important. Just the reminder to repurpose, right? And reuse
Hmm.
because we purchase so much, consumerism. And so we can utilize those packages in other ways, very crafty ways, right? I also discovered seated postcards
Mm.
because I use postcards in my work, in different works. And so these postcards actually, people can write on it and everything. And once that action has happened, it becomes a sort of living document because then you can plant it directly into the soil
That's
and it
beautiful. Very
grows as
poetic.
whatever flowers exactly. And I was just like, man, this is great. So that's the way, as an artist, just as a person, period,
Yeah.
I'm trying to not add to my carbon footprint, because I
Yeah.
want to breathe. So I'm going to breathe.
Yeah.
Um, but so that I'm not adding to it, I utilize the seeded postcards.
That is so cool. I've never heard of this before. How have I never heard of this? This is amazing. I'm looking at it right now online. There's so many options too. I love that. And I want it planted. I want it planted. I want it shipped to me in a seated box too. I want the whole thing seated 1,000%. I want the
Right.
truck to be seated. I want the plane to
Yes,
be
yes,
seated.
yes. Everything. Seated. Thank you. Danny,
Man.
anything else you want to add before
No, let's
before
get
we
into the unicorn question.
yeah. Well, yeah, Saudi. So thank you so much for that. Again, like you said you're not an expert, but you do this. So
Yeah.
you are an expert.
Yeah.
The personal
You.
empirical
Hmm.
is necessary. So before we go, Saudi, we have a surprise question for you. And I will bring it up right now. And then Danny, if you can do the honors, I will be
She's
getting
gonna
it
share a
together.
screen, and I always do the doobly 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 sound effects. But yes, we have a question we love to ask all of our interviewee guests on our show before they leave. Sadi, in your utopia, there would be dot dot dot.
In my utopia, there would be love, respect, lots of wilderness. How much can I go on? Art,
Yeah.
education, art education. Uh Kindness.
Mm.
Definitely kindness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And respect for animals, insects, nature, all human beings. Openness.
Mm.
Dance.
Yeah. Awesome. And respect for if for those of you who are watching, you'll see we have a beautiful unicorn on our screen. This is our RFC unicorn. Respect for unicorns. That's what we want
Yeah.
in our utopia. But yeah, I love all of that. Janet,
Mm.
anything you want to
Just thank you for that
thank
kindness.
you.
I mean,
Kindness.
because if we have kindness, I think all those other things are achievable.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. For sure.
Mm.
Well, Sadi, thank you so much for coming on. I haven't for I never actually said this, but Sadi and I got to meet on Zoom years ago, it feels like at this point. So it's so great to be back on the Zoom with you and talking more about your works. And it's so cool to see how they've evolved over the last few years. And I hope that we can have you on again some point in the future. That would be awesome. But it is time to end our part 2 of the Environmental Art and Advocacy Collection. Thank you again, Sardi, for coming with us. For those of you who are watching or listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the wonderful podcast places, please make sure you check out her website in our show notes. But yes, so in about a month, we're going to have part 3 of the Environmental Art and Advocacy Collection. So make sure I'm going to get that date up here, make sure I get it correct. I believe Janet, all of our notes got all mixed up in here, but I
It's
believe it's September 6th. I can't find it in our
yes.
notes because everything got moved around. There we go. September 6th. There we go. Yeah. So Saturday, September 6th at 1 p.m. Man, Janet, we have a lot of notes. That's good. We have so many things we want to talk about all the time. Make sure you check in live on our YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Please, please, please. And tell all your friends to like, subscribe, share as well. We also like to remind our listeners that this podcast is funded by the two of us, your lovely Lady Artivist hosts, and your donations. So please help keep our podcast going by making a donation through our PayPal link in the show notes below. And don't forget to on social media, check in with us over the next month. We might have some fun things coming up for y'all. This is a crazy time right now. We're all teaching artists, we're all teachers. So August is always kind of a crazy time, but we'll have some stuff up on the social medias between now and September 6th for sure. All right.
Peace.
Peace. Peace, y'all. Thanks.
All righty then. And